So welcome to my site, everybody. My name is Paul Smyers. I'm a real estate agent in the beautiful state of Virginia, and I specialize in rural property. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about how to document your property, because it's very important. There's an old saying in pilot, I have a pilot license, and there's a saying in pilot jargon, a short pencil beats a long memory, and it's so true. When you buy and sell a property, especially I tell sellers, do you have any documentation about what you did on this property? Now, you and I have all been on Zillow or GIS system, and we look up a house or property and you go, well, since 1992 it had a little bit of improvement. Maybe it says a shed or something. Okay, well, you go look at the property in 2025, you're like, whoa, there's a lot of stuff they put on this property that isn't in that records, you see. So one thing I suggest to people is keep a log. Keep a log of what you do on your property. When was the septic tank last drained? When was the roof changed? And all kinds of things like that. Because it really, really helps, not just for your own records. It's very important to have for your own records, hey, last year it was drier. Or last year, for example, my list here, last year I knew it was a lot more moisture. We had our little ponds more full. We had to deal with extra water, and we dealt with it. But this year it's a lot drier, you see. So you keep a record of what you do. If you make an addition, if you have a well pump replaced, or your water pump, or your pressure switch, or anything, your water heater, keep a documentation. And sometimes not just for those kinds of appliances and so on, but just for personal records. And I have one here. I don't keep it every day, but significant events, and look back, oh yeah, 3 years ago I got this property, and here's what I was doing last year about the same time. And I make notes to myself. So it really helps. So I encourage people, not just for the records of being when you sell the property, which is very important, because then you can say, hey, 3 years ago I spent $20,000 and I replaced a whole roof, or I had my driveway paved, or something like that. You can prove it, and then that builds up your value. So, but on a personal level, it really is fun to kind of keep track. Hey, last year I got the chicken coop, or this is the year I planted my fruit trees, and it's been 3 years now. And that's the kind of thing I put in my documents. So I'm going to make a short video about it, but I encourage people to really keep track of what they are doing. I have a booklet of all diagrams and strategies and where I'm going to put my garden beds, and I just make drawings. I even make drawings of maybe I'll build a cabin someday, and here's my dimensions. I make some drawings of it. Have some fun experimenting, because when you buy a property, the last thing you want to do is just buy there and just sit there for 10 years, 20 years and never change a darn thing. It really makes magic when your property, you do something with it. You be creative. You invent something new. Make an old homestead glorious. You see, I encourage people to buy other properties that have been on sale. In other words, not new properties. I encourage people to look at already established homesteads and rural properties. So I hope people like this content, and I am trying to make some new videos. I'm getting a new camera soon. I keep updating my studio here. I make some little changes in the background so it's not boring every time. I'll tell you a little bit about where I live. If you see on my other videos, I've also pointed that out. But the Shenandoah Valley is here. I live right around this corner here. That is in almost the widest part of the Shenandoah Valley. It's absolutely gorgeous around here, and if you are looking for homesteading type of life and that rural atmosphere that we all love, look into places where it already exists, where it's already popular, where everybody else is doing it. I have been shocked. I've been living in Virginia for maybe 15 years, and I drive around and I go, man, that is gorgeous. I go around this curve and man, that's gorgeous. Like, wow, there's so many views and so many pastoral properties, and many of them are on roads that hardly any travels on them. It's amazing. And you can find that kind of property. I really urge people, before you spend $500,000-$600,000 in some huge house in a development with 6,000 square feet and all that, with HOA, with $500 a month HOA bill on something like that, go look out on the outskirts of the property where You can be out here where you're not even very far from a big town. I can get everything I want in 15 minutes. I go to Waynesboro, I can go to Charlottesville, I can go to Stanton. But when I come home, hey, there's no street lights on my road, you see, and I got a beautiful shelter here. But that's the kind of thing that you can find if you look for it. Be wise. Look at some of my other videos and other content. Think about where you're going to put yourself, because a lot of people want to be a homesteader, and it's a noble, noble goal. Be careful, because I have young children. My grandchildren are young. Well, the oldest is 18, but I have two sons who are in their 40s, and it's very difficult for people to conceive of living out in a rural area if you grew up in a condominium, or your parents were in this big development and everywhere was all manicured and everything, and then you go out buy a big property out in the boonies, or you might say, like where I have, like someone asked me the other day, my sister actually, well, who mows this lawn? Well, I do. Well, it takes me 2 hours, but I got the tools for it, you see. So I don't mind it, but when you go out in the country, there's a different kind of a strategy and mentality that you need to have, and it really helps to document, because when you're going to unfold a property and develop it, have some fun documentation, some videos, some photographs, and so on. And that's kind of the point of this little video here. Document your property, make some plans of your development, make some strategies, make checklists of what you got to do on each of the structures in the property. I have 7 or 8 structures here, and some of them are pretty big, so actually bigger than the house. So I figured, well, I better keep track of this, because there's a lot to do here, you see. But that's kind of the fun part of being out in the homestead life, and I encourage people to watch other people's content like I do and learn a lot. And thanks again for listening. If you like this content, please share it and come back again. I hope to see you in some of the other content. Thanks.